This might encourage other corporate brands to say, you know what? Maybe we're doing it all wrong. Maybe it's time to go back, right? Maybe it's time to bring back the old slanted roof of Pizza Hut or the bell at Taco Bell. Maybe McDonald's needs the old play places again. We will see if they end up doing it, but it is interesting. Cracker Barrel went to the edge of the abyss, looked down, and then turned back. And people are very happy about it, actually. Now, I would ask a couple questions, though. Some people say this is part of the, quote-unquote, wokening of America. Not waking up, but woking up. Meaning, of course, we're eliminating the character, the culture, the values we used to represent. And look, to our European friends out there, Canadian friends, you might be like, Josh, what the heck are you talking about? Look, you don't mess with America's fast food. That's what I'm talking about. Americans have like an emotional connection to fast food restaurants. I'm not joking, right? Because it's nostalgic for us. We grew up going to these places. They're kind of part of the culture that we raised in. For me, it was going to these places with my friends. Sometimes lunchtime, sometimes late at night, hanging out. We remember these places on road trips. There's something about kind of Americana and the life on the road. Americans, of course, probably drive a lot more than people in most countries. We have a very road-heavy lifestyle. And the truck stops and the tourist traps, and especially the fast food places on the road, these really do hold kind of a part of our culture. When we see them get stripped of the character that has that American feel to it, and go to these more modernist corporate vibes, it sounds funny, but I feel like there's almost a loss we feel to it, that something from our childhood is being taken away, and that, going forward to our own kids, they're not going to have that. Yeah. And I'd say that actually is what it comes down to, I think. It feels like the family values are being pulled out of these institutions when they do these very just sanitized rebrandings. The average American feels that they're being pushed aside with this. And I think it's because of this that the whole culture war narrative, really does reflect heavily in this corporate rebranding. I would say maybe this is a sign we're at a turning point, though. Maybe the fact that maybe the Cracker Barrel moment is the true turning point of the United States. The looking down to the abyss and the turning back, and going back to tradition. I like that. We can only hope, right? Now, on to another topic. Antifa, anti-fascist action, is becoming even more extreme, to the point of even more serious violence. New York Post actually said this. They say experts who track domestic terrorism and extremist movements are not surprised. Once the face of a grassroots left-wing insurgency, Antifa has lost its spark. But experts warn that could be a dangerous thing, as the vacuum has given way to even more fringe and violent offshoots that are coalescing into the Marxist ether. And they add, we're only beginning to see the deadly fallout. Last month, Benjamin Song, a member of the Antifa militant group Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club and the Socialist Rifle Association, led a group of 10 radicals, 8 of whom were found living in a reportedly squalid transgender community in an armed ambush at an ICE detention center in Alvarado, Texas. The shooting left one officer injured. They allegedly had plans to kill police officers, and they actually did shoot one of them, by the way. Further on, they state this. An even more gruesome story unfolded with the February arrest of Jack Ziz Lasota, head of a murderous transgender cult accused of a multi-state killing spree that took 6 lives. The so-called Zizians espoused an ideology of anarchism and extreme veganism, seeking to slaughter figures of petty authority, quote-unquote, cops say. Notably, for some reason, a lot of the Antifa movement has been merged with a very, very radical and very violent transsexual movement as well. Some call it Trans-Tifa. Again, a group of Antifa who are transsexuals and oftentimes advocate for violence openly. They talk about using violence as a way to defend their trans rights. So Antifa has very largely merged into that. And notably, the last 2 violent incidents I've noted 6 people killed in one incident, 1 officer shot in the neck, actually another one. Those involve these types of Antifa. And further in the state, this it usually goes like this. Stragglers and lost souls latch onto a charismatic elder in the movement, someone with nothing else going on in life but the communist hustle. And new factions are forged under the general anti-fascist umbrella. According to Gabriel Nadales, a 31-year-old former Antifa member. They say they have names like Smash Racism, Redneck Revolt, and Refuse Fascism. Some would argue not representing any of the things they claim to represent because they're kind of fascist. Right? And they note it should be noted that those particular groups are not accused of murder or fatal violence, but they do note that they are kind of part of the Antifa diaspora. Basically, what's happening is this. It seems that Antifa, which was a group of kind of radical anarcho-communists, right? Which have actually always been merged, even though you think they oppose each other. That very radical group that believed in using violence as a way to shut down conservatives, going back to Trump's first term in office and before. They would oftentimes, organize protests and violent beatings of conservatives anytime conservatives held a get-together or a speaking event or anything, or a protest, right? That movement has become more radical. As they became more radical, some of the less radical individuals left the movements. And as the less radical people left, the ones who do not believe in extreme use of violence, the remainders of them are the more extreme types. And that's becoming concerning because what happens? If the remaining people are the ones who believe in extreme use of violence, murder, killing of police officers, you name it, then that movement, which has been allowed to persist in the United States for a very long time for some reason, because Antifa was even protected during some incidents, where the people who fought against them were arrested, but the Antifa members were not. The very loose-handed response to Antifa for many years has allowed this radical organization, which openly advocates violence as a form of political change, which, by the way, is the definition of terrorism, they've been allowed to continue like this with almost very little consequence for a long time. Some now, but for a long time, very little consequence. As they become more extreme, the organizations that were part of its networks are turning into individual movements. And as that's happening, well, we're seeing what's happening now, which is they're kind of becoming terrorists. I mean, in the very real, very open sense. They're becoming a lot more extreme. And even more than that, the ideology they espouse, the use of violence to defend their movements, the use of murder, the need to kill fascists, quote unquote, and they use the term fascist for basically everybody who's not a communist, like not even like conservatives. They label even like the normal left, they would label as their enemies. And because they espouse the use of violence, some of them are getting radicalized even by the narratives. Look, another topic, though, the Trump administration is challenging foreign censorship laws, saying they're impacting American companies and Americans' free speech. Some of these
opening fire outside a Catholic school in Minneapolis Wednesday, killing 2 children and injuring 18 others. NTD's Christina Corona has the latest on the tragedy.
A candlelight vigil was held in Lyndhurst Park in Minneapolis Wednesday to honor the victims of the Catholic school shooting. Officials provided an update on the tragedy on Thursday.
At this time, we have identified a total of 20 victims that had injuries resulting from gunfire, including the 8 and 10-year-old who were killed yesterday. 15 of the injured are children between the ages of 6 and 15.
He says the children's injuries range from minor grazes to serious, life-threatening wounds. 3 of the victims are adults in their 80s. Police say they recovered, quote, 3 shotgun shells along with approximately 116 rifle rounds at the scene. The FBI has identified the shooter as 23-year-old Robin Westman. Officials confirmed he was born Robert Westman and legally changed his name in 2020 after identifying as female. Online posts by the suspect showed firearms, ammunition, and notes describing depression and plans for an attack.
The shooter left behind hundreds of pages of writings that describe the shooter's plan, writings that describe the shooter's mental state, and more than anything, writings that describe the shooter's hate. Pure, indiscriminate hate.
Officials say the church's locked doors during Mass saved lives.
Annunciation Church had a practice that once Mass began, they locked the doors of the church. This incident occurred shortly after the Mass was beginning. So there's no question that the fact that the doors were locked likely saved additional lives.
O'Hara says that the shooter intended to barricade and did barricade the doors on the same side of the church where the shooting occurred. Officials say the gunman had attended the church and school in the past, and that his mother once worked at the parish. They confirm the shooter purchased the guns legally and had no criminal history except for a traffic ticket. On Thursday, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey urged state and federal bans on so-called assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Christina Corona, NTD News.
The White House says very soon it will announce a new CDC director to replace Dr. Susan Menares. This while Menares